A single building in a Chinese city covered nearly half of its annual electricity needs, not with rooftop solar panels, but through what looked like ordinary windows. When independent experts received those numbers, they demanded a recheck. The result was the same. Engineers who had spent 20 years calling this problem unsolvable stared at the data and couldn't believe what they were seeing. What exactly happened, and why does it change the way we think about how cities will generate energy in the future? For decades, glass had one job: let light in and keep heat from escaping. Simple, straightforward. Scientists had long dreamed of adding a second job, turning every window into a source of electricity. The idea sounded beautiful. In practice, it kept hitting a dead end. The problem was fundamental. A solar panel works because it absorbs light, and when a material absorbs light, it gets dark. That's exactly why a standard rooftop panel is black. It literally eats light to convert it into energy. Now imagine trying to do the same thing with window glass. The better it collects energy, the darker it gets. The more transparent it is, the less electricity it produces. This isn't an engineering flaw, it's physics. The world's top research centers, including leading universities and major laboratories, spent nearly 20 years trying to escape this trap. The best efficiency anyone had managed to achieve with transparent solar cells was around 8%. For comparison, a standard rooftop panel delivers around 20%. That means transparent versions were performing at less than half the output of a conventional panel, and still weren't transparent enough for real-world use in buildings. On top of that, there was the cost. This kind of glass ran 4 to 8 times more expensive than regular glass. Architects looked at the numbers and went with proven solutions. Investors stopped funding projects that hadn't left the lab in years. Gradually, the industry quietly set the idea aside, not as a failure, but as a beautiful theory that just didn't work in the real world. This is where the unexpected twist begins. The breakthrough didn't come from a university lab with a major grant. It came from somewhere most people weren't looking closely enough. There was no grand presentation, no stage, no headlines, no marketing campaign. Instead, a technical specification was quietly posted on a company's website. A new type of glass panel designed for installation on real buildings. The company was already one of the largest solar panel manufacturers in the world at that point, supplying products to dozens of countries for many years. When its new glass division claimed efficiency above 12% while maintaining real transparency, the industry took notice immediately, and almost immediately started pushing back. Experts pointed out that achieving those numbers in real-world conditions, not in an ideal lab environment, would require an entirely new manufacturing process that didn't exist anywhere in the world yet. Industry publications called the claim optimistic at best. Some said outright, "This is impossible." But it's worth remembering how people reacted a few years earlier to claims about a new battery technology coming out of China. They said the numbers didn't add up, that the product wasn't ready for real-world use, that there was nothing behind the bold words. Today, that type of battery sits inside a massive share of the electric vehicles being sold around the world. It's a consistent pattern. A bold claim gets dismissed, the product quietly hits the market, and the skeptics end up buying the very thing they called impossible. That doesn't mean every ambitious claim turns out to be true, but it does mean it's smarter to check the actual evidence rather than dismiss an idea just because it sounds too big. The real question was different. What if the company hadn't just made a claim, but had been quietly, invisibly building the exact manufacturing foundation needed to back that claim up for years? Because the biggest secret here wasn't the material or the chemistry. The biggest secret was the factory. Most people misunderstand how technological breakthroughs actually work. The idea usually already exists. Scientists generally understand what's possible. The real challenge is doing it fast enough and cheaply enough to make sense outside a laboratory. The type of solar cell needed for this glass wasn't a new discovery. The so-called tandem solar cell, 2 solar layers stacked on top of each other to capture more of the sun's energy spectrum than a single layer can, was well understood. The problem was manufacturing speed. Regular glass is made on a continuous line. Molten glass flows out, spreads into a flat sheet, cools, and keeps moving. No stops. That continuity is exactly what makes glass cheap. The moment you try to stop the line to apply additional layers, costs spike. Every previous attempt followed the same approach. Make the glass first, then ship it to a different facility and add the solar layer separately. That added time, cost, and the risk of damage. The product technically worked, but economically it made no sense for anyone building at real scale. The solution was to apply the coating directly onto the moving glass. Think of a car going through an automatic car wash and coming out clean, without stopping for a single second. Something similar happens here. An ultra-thin chemical mist bonds with the glass and forms the solar layer on the fly, while the sheet keeps moving at full speed. Getting that process right took years. The temperature of the mist had to be exact. The speed of the glass had to match the speed of the coating application to within fractions of a second. Too fast, and the layer came out uneven. Too slow, and the whole point of a continuous line was lost. Engineers adjusted the smallest details over and over until the process was reliable enough to run at full capacity. In early trials, this method delivered just over 13% efficiency and held that result across the entire production run, not just on one carefully selected sample. That mattered. A lot of lab results look great on a single test piece and fall apart when you need to reproduce them thousands of times in a row. That didn't happen here, but solving the manufacturing problem created a new one. And it had nothing to do with machines or factories. The glass came out slightly tinted. Not black, but dark enough that it didn't meet the light transmission standards required for office buildings in many cities. And this was the same wall that had stopped every previous attempt for 20 years, just in a slightly different form. Most teams before this had simply picked a side. Either more power and a darker window, or more transparency and less electricity. Nobody had found a way to get both at the same time. The solution turned out to be surprisingly elegant. Instead of trying to capture more visible light, the kind the human eye uses to see, engineers focused on a completely different part of the solar spectrum. Sunlight isn't only what we can see, it also carries invisible radiation, ultraviolet and infrared sitting outside the range the human eye can detect. An ultra-thin layer containing tiny particles, quantum dots, was built into the glass. They work like a filter, intercepting the invisible radiation and redirecting it toward the solar cell, while visible light passes straight through completely unobstructed. Essentially, the invisible light was given its own dedicated lane. It stopped competing with the light the eye actually needs. You can think of it like sorting mail. Instead of one overloaded department trying to process everything at once, a separate corridor is built for packages so that regular letters keep moving without any delays. That's exactly what happens to sunlight inside this kind of glass. After independent testing, the result came in at just above 14% efficiency, with around 43% of visible light passing through. That's enough for the glass to qualify as a legitimate architectural material, not just a tinted panel pretending to be a window. For the first time, a window didn't have to choose between being transparent and being useful. But one good panel isn't a solution. The real challenge is getting thousands of those panels to work together on an actual building. A high-rise office building covered in floor-to-ceiling glass is an energy management nightmare. The sun doesn't hit every window the same way. A south-facing window at noon gets direct light. A window a few feet away, shaded by a neighboring building, gets almost nothing. Every panel is doing something different every second of every day. Traditional building power systems weren't designed for that kind of unpredictability. The solution was a small control unit behind each pane of glass. It reads exactly how much energy that specific panel is producing right now and converts it into a stable, usable current, regardless of what the panels next to it are doing. On top of that, the entire building system is managed by a smart controller that tracks everything in real time and routes electricity to wherever it's needed most at any given second: lighting, elevators, or air conditioning. At one real pilot site operating on this setup, around 43% of annual electricity consumption was covered by the glass walls. When the project organizers received that number, they requested an independent recheck before they were willing to publish it. The second check came back with the same result. Here's why this matters beyond what it might seem at first glance. Buildings consume a staggering share of the world's energy. They produce more climate-related emissions than cars, trucks, and airplanes combined. A large portion of that comes from heating, cooling, and lighting buildings that were designed decades ago, long before energy efficiency was taken seriously. That makes the glass facades of skyscrapers in every major city in the world one of the largest untapped opportunities on the planet right now. To be honest, the obstacles haven't gone away. This glass still costs roughly 45 to 60% more than conventional glass. At current electricity prices, fully recouping those extra costs can take more than 10 years. The solar layers in these panels degrade faster over time than traditional rooftop panels do. And in most countries, building codes haven't been updated to treat this kind of glass as a legitimate primary energy source rather than just an add-on option. Without the right regulations, developers have less incentive to pay more, even when their long-term savings look compelling on paper. Cities with abundant sunlight and active high-rise construction are watching this most closely. There, the payback period is shorter, and the potential upside is more tangible. But here's the most important thing. What stopped this technology for 20 years was never a science problem. Scientists broadly understood what needed to be done. The challenge was assembling the right factories, the right materials, and a large enough market for real-scale testing, all in one place. That's an incredibly difficult combination to pull off, and very few have managed it. If costs keep falling and efficiency keeps rising, we may be heading toward a future where new buildings don't just consume energy. They produce it quietly, every day, simply by standing in the sun. And that leaves one question worth thinking about. Do you think this glass will become the standard for cities of the future, or will it stay an interesting niche idea that never really spreads everywhere? Let me know in the comments. I read every single response. If this video was useful to you, hit the like button. It genuinely helps. Subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications so you don't miss the next one. See you then.